Hey everyone, you're listening to Read, Watch, Listen on the East Brunswick Public Library Podcast Network. My name is Chris Barnes, and this is a show where we talk to people in the community about what they're reading, watching, and listening. We have a very special guest, local author Jen Doktorski. Jen, how are you doing?
Great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Now, Jen, you are a young adult author, amongst other things. So what do you like to write about?
I write contemporary fiction, so I usually like to take a look at teens in real life situations, whether that be their first summer job at a newspaper or the summer before they leave for college and all the growing and change that goes with that. So mostly I'm a fan of growing up Judy Blume and her brand of realistic fiction. So I always wanted to be the kind of author or writer who just never forgot what it was like to be a teen, and then hopefully write books that teens can relate to and characters that teens see themselves in.
Very interesting. Now, did you ever want to write like an adult fiction book?
I'm working on an adult fiction book now. This one has a touch of magical realism in it, which is new for me, about a middle-aged woman who was kind of tired of her life and rediscovers her future when she finds a portal to the past in a long-term storage unit. So that's been my latest project. YA sort of my first love, but definitely exploring other genres is something I want to do.
No, makes sense. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of our program. Jen, what have you been reading lately?
Right now, I just started a book called Mercury by Amy Jo Burns. I love her writing. I read her memoir and her fictional book Shiner. This one's also fiction, and it's set out in Appalachia about a family of roofers. I just started it, but so far I love it. A book I completed recently was called Varina, Palladino's Jersey Italian Love Story. The author's Terri-Lynne DeFino. The thing I love about this book is, as a proud North Jersey girl myself of Italian American descent, I just never watched The Sopranos, don't like the reality show Jersey Shore. I generally don't buy into the tropes surrounding my family's Italian American culture. But this book, I just felt like I got to spend real time with real people in a sort of modern Italian American love story, and everything about it rang true, and I totally loved it. And I'm also reading the nonfiction book called Shift Happens by J. Albert Mann. This is a YA nonfiction novel about the history of labor in the United States. And it's really such an important untold story. And it's incredibly well researched. And Jen Mann, the author, manages to convey a very complicated subject in a conversational tone. And I love the voice in the book and the fact that she's talking about a big part of American history that generally gets overlooked. And it's written for teens. And I think teens can learn a lot about the history of labor unions and how important that movement was in the United States.
Very interesting stuff. So let's talk about what you've been watching lately. It could be a movie, it could be a TV series.
I am a huge fan of public television. I love the Antiques Roadshow. I will even watch the reruns of Antiques Roadshow. I love basically all things like PBS, All Creatures Great and Small, Doc Martin, which reminds me of Northern Exposure, but set in the fictional fishing village of Port Wine, England. Seaside Hotel, which is another PBS show that's set on the beach of Denmark. It's, follows the hotel guests who keep returning year after year to the same seaside beach. And I also can't wait to watch season 3 of The Bear and Bridgerton. And HGTV, that's my go-to to just like relax and chill out. I'll turn on HGTV and whatever's on, I'll watch. But my 3 favorites are Love It or List It, House Hunters International, and Hometown, where the Napier couple renovates these beautiful old homes in their hometown of Laurel, Mississippi.
Very cool. So in our last category is, what are you listening to? So Jen, when you're driving around, is it music? Is it podcast?
I always have a book going. In addition to the books I'm reading, there's always a book I have going on audio because I do it while I wash the dishes or driving. I just never like to just waste time not doing something else. So right now I'm listening to Bel Canto by Ann Patchett. I also really like the Julie Louis-Dreyfus podcast, Wiser Than Me, where she talks to all these iconic women. Most of them are over the age of 50 because she feels like it's a group that often gets ignored or devalued. So it's great. It's funny. It's smart. It's informative. Music-wise, I live with a Swiftie, so we're always listening to a good amount of Taylor Swift around here, whether I like it or not. And my taste in music, I just downloaded the latest Decemberist album called As It Ever Was, So Will It Be Again. I loved the first song they released on that called Burial Ground, and their lyrics are always so smart and clever. And I saw them in concert years ago, and I remember feeling like I just read a Dickens novel instead of seeing a concert, which it kind of makes sense because the lead singer is also a children's book author, which I always found cool.
Well, Jen, that pretty much wraps it up for our end. Is there anything else you'd like us to know about?
The newest thing on the writing front for me is that this summer, my publisher re-released two of my novels set at the Jersey Shore, which really, like, these books are my love letters to the Jersey Shore. I always say this is the story of the real Jersey Shore. August and Everything After and The Summer After You and Me. Both are set at towns on the Jersey coast, and both follow two different teens in that summer before college, those coming of age months when you leave one life and you sort of move on to your adult life.
Very cool. We can't wait to see them in bookstores and at the library. We can't wait to see what you've got next. But where can they find you online?
My website is jendoktorski.com. I have a newsletter, so you could always sign up for my newsletter to learn about what I'm writing, what I'm working on. On Instagram, I'm at Jen Doktorski, and on what used to be Twitter, I'm at J Doktorski.
Sounds good. Okay, Jen, thank you again for being on the show today. This pretty much wraps it up here on Read, Watch, Listen. Special thanks to our producer, Melissa Hosick, and you can check us out for more podcasts and great stuff at ebpl.org/podcast. Thanks for listening.